As I sit down to write today's video script, I find myself struggling to find the right words. Hello, my name is Lauren and welcome to the Theoretical YouTube channel, where it has been almost 4 years since the last Fantastic Beasts movie. And unlike 83% of the internet, I'm actually a huge fan of Crimes of Grindelwald. I legitimately rank it as one of my favorite Harry Potter films. Unironically, I swear. But the closer this new release date inches, I just don't find myself that excited for a new Fantastic Beasts movie. I couldn't sleep the night before the last premiere, so why am I struggling now to pre-order tickets? It could honestly be for a variety of reasons, like the seemingly endless J.K. Rowling controversy and the mental difficulty in separating art from artist. It's simply hard for me to compartmentalize my appreciation for her work from her online social and political persona. So I just know that some piece in the back of my mind is still going to be thinking about her Twitter profile as I'm sitting in my seat at her feet, or even preemptively parsing out whether or not it's a conversation topic I want to engage with particular people. It's like I'm already fatigued from backlash when the film hasn't even come out yet. But even apart from J.K. Rowling, this production has been riddled with other scandals or controversies. It's not really our thing on this channel to break down this kind of stuff, so I really encourage you to do research on your own on any of these issues. But from pandemic stuff to Johnny Depp's departure and all the delayed releases and now the whole Ezra Miller thing, it just seems miraculous that this film ever made it to cinemas. But once again, it has been such a prolonged process that all of the hype I had built up coming out of Crimes of Grindelwald has pretty much burned off by now. It's been almost a decade since the first Fantastic Beasts film came out, and I'm kind of a different person than I was back then, and I definitely have a different outlook on media consumption. Not in a bad way or anything, I'm just a lot older and more exposed to both good and bad faith criticism. Heck, in the time since Crimes of Grindelwald, I have graduated from college with a degree in writing and a minor in film studies. So some part of me is actually afraid of this film, or for my own perception of the franchise. Like, is my intense love of Harry Potter so heavy with nostalgia that I'm unable to properly weigh its merit? And is that innocent bubble going to break and suddenly expose this new film's flaws under the microscope of academic rigor? Because I've learned so much about writing and cinematography and filmic language, will I suddenly be unable to enjoy simple, silly wizard cinema? That seems preposterous, right? But so many people have already hopped off the franchise bandwagon for this reason, among so many others. As much as I do personally enjoy Crimes of Grindelwald, I have to acknowledge that it was critically panned for some legitimate concerns over the craft of film. And I worry that if my own brain ruins Secrets of Dumbledore for me, will that bleed into the franchise retroactively? A few months ago, for completely unrelated reasons, I went back and reread a few chapters from Order of the Phoenix, specifically the journey to Hogwarts and the introduction of Luna Lovegood. And I just had this sudden sinking epiphany that this book that I had loved reading so many times before was very much written like a middle grade or young adult book. In terms of rhetorical technique, pacing, tone, dialogue, formatting, etc., etc. But that's not a bad thing. It's not a judgment on value or quality at all. But I was just overwhelmed with the realization that my personal reading level had long surpassed the target audience that the book had in mind. I had never considered that Harry Potter might not have a universal appeal. Again, not a bad thing, just a weird feeling to have such a defined measurement of growing up, for lack of a better term. Obviously, the Fantastic Beasts film had a slightly older skew when it comes to target audience, but at the crux of it all, it's still the same franchise. My real worry, and another thing that I know will be in the back of my mind, is that Secrets of Dumbledore will be the filmic version of that same experience. Like trying to squeeze back into a comfy flannel and realizing that it just doesn't fit anymore. Well, the first half of this video has been kind of depressing and very personal. But all of it to say that I have extremely mixed feelings while walking into this movie. But I really really want to love it. More than anything else, I wanted to do well enough for Warner Brothers to commit to finishing the franchise. Because I can imagine how devastating it would be to have another cliffhanger ending and then be cut off on film 3 out of 5. This is a talented cast, some really interesting characters, and stakes that, frankly, I care a little bit more about than Voldemort's bid for power. Which is weird to say, because obviously Grindelwald is not going to win in the end, but who was really walking into Deathly Hallows thinking that Voldemort was going to win? Like, I was 8 and more genre savvy than that. So, I gave you my thoughts. Here's some hopes. I really hope that Queenie ends this film still as a follower of Grindelwald. If you've seen my previous video on her character arc, then you'll know that I believe she has more potential as a villain right now. I hope we get some payoff to the whole Aurelius Dumbledore thing early on in the film, and that Credence gets an identity that finally sticks. I hope there are 50% less snakes in the film. I hope that Tina's actually in the movie. She is my favorite character, and I know that Catherine Watterson wasn't available for most of the filming. But she's such a great foil for Newt, cares more about Credence than almost any other character, and has to deal with the betrayal by her sister. The potential is just so tremendous for her to have a dramatically rich arc in this stage of the series. Okay, now for predictions. I wanted to put these in order from most to least likely, but I honestly couldn't figure out what that order would be. So here's a completely random order. 1. There's gonna be a post-credit scene. This is a bit of a risky one to start off with since neither of the other two Fantastic Beasts films had one, but honestly, feels like a bit of a missed opportunity. So I'm not really confident, but I did want it in writing. And if I had to guess the contents, I would say it's Nagini transforming into her final form or something. I really hope it's not that, but that's for personal phobia reasons. 2. Ariana Dumbledore will be confirmed as an Obscurial. If you somehow don't know, an Obscurial is a young Witcher wizard who suppressed their own magical abilities and eventually formed an Obscurus, like we see with Credence in the first film. And while it has long been theorized that Dumbledore's younger sister, who suppressed her magical abilities and accidentally killed her mother in a violent magical outburst, had an Obscurus, it has never been officially confirmed. But in a film with a title like Secrets of Dumbledore, a main character who has a history with Obscuruses and a villain with a special interest in them, it seems inevitable that the truth is going to come out soon. Like, now. But I think the real clincher here is the inclusion of Aberforth Dumbledore. You know, whose only real purpose in Harry Potter has been to reveal secrets about the Dumbledore family, and specifically Ariana. And consider the fact that the last time Albus, Aberforth, and Grindelwald were all together, it resulted in the duel that killed her. So, my guess is that Dumbledore outsources the reveal about his sister to Aberforth. Send Newt to learn about the past that he can't admit himself from someone else who was there. What makes this even better is that Theseus is there when Newt meets Aberforth, meaning that it's a pair of often feuding brothers confronting another pair of brothers with a complicated relationship.
I'm not interested in what happened between you and your brother.
So it would make it a real missed opportunity to have this not be the secret of Dumbledore that the whole plot hinges on. Number 3, Jacob's wand is not a wand. I don't think that Jacob has any latent magical ability, and I don't think that this thing is actually a wand.
Are you kidding me right now?
And I think that the interaction with the Hogwarts students at the end of the first trailer is the real indicator here that something else is going on, because their reaction is kind of weird.
Can I?
Very dangerous.
If it was just a normal wand, why would they have such a keen interest in it? After all, they'd all have one of them themselves, so why ask to touch his? And why keep it from them? Well, I do think that it is a magical device, likely another tool or weapon disguised to look like a wand. either so that Jacob can actually defend himself on dangerous missions or to blend in overseas where wizard-muggle relations are more taboo.
Really progressive here.
So yes, I think it can do magic, but it might be loaded with specific spells. And he doesn't want the students to touch it because then they might realize that it's not a normal wand. Number 4, instead of just reading minds, Queenie will invade one. Why? When Snape teaches Harry Legilimency in Order of the Phoenix, he repeatedly invades Harry's mind to show him how Voldemort might prey on his memories. Harry even invades Snape's mind at one point, meaning that reading minds is far from the only thing the spell can do. But Queenie is a born Legilimens, meaning that she doesn't need a spell to read minds. It's even more natural and powerful for her. But I think that under Grindelwald's employment and tutelage, her powers will continue to grow, and we might actually see her invade someone's mind. Specifically, there's a shot from one of the trailers with Queenie and Jacob inside of his bakery, which is extremely interesting because at first glance it might look like the moment that they reunited at the end of the first film, recalling her bright pink hat and jacket. But this is absolutely not that moment. For instance, it's at night instead of the middle of the day. Jacob is dressed completely differently, and Queenie's hair is styled more like her current iteration. You'll also know that the shelves behind them are bare instead of full of baked goods, much more like how we see them in this film when Professor Hicks is recruiting Jacob.
Ah! You do know I'm a witch, right?
But Queenie shouldn't be in that scene. So, my prediction is that Queenie is going to read Jacob's mind, invade it, and create this scene by blending his memories together. A piece of magic that definitely aligns with what we've seen Legilimens do before, but on a scale of power and manipulation that is just unprecedented. 5. This memory that Grindelwald is extracting from Yusuf Kama is probably of Leta Lestrange's confession about switching the babies. Either that or he's been a spy the whole film and is passing off valuable information. And finally, number 6. Tom Riddle makes a cameo. This all depends on when Secrets of Dumbledore is actually set, but since the 5th movie will have to be in 1945 and the first was in 1927 and the second was less than a year after that, they certainly have a lot of ground to cover in terms of time jumps. So it's really not inconceivable that this is the late 1930s and that Tom Riddle is in the background of Hogwarts. After all, the first film was set the same year he was born, which just feels a little too perfect to be a coincidence. But yeah, that one's pretty far-fetched, so I'm not betting anything on it. But that's what I have for you today. A ton of worries, some cautious optimism, and a whole lot of theory buds. They're not quite ready to bloom, but there's definitely potential there. If you like this video, please do so in the section down here, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, because we have lots of Harry Potter content. And a ton of Crimes of Grindelwald stuff if you're like me and weird. You can also follow us on Twitter at Theory_Central, where I technically post content more often than a Fantastic Beasts movie comes out. And consider supporting us on Patreon, like the incredible David W. and Alex Toquinto, both of whom are actually nifflers with YouTube accounts. But again, all the mixed thoughts in the back of my mind are stressful. So thanks for watching. Tina deserves better than this, and I'll see you later.
Did he ever mention my name? Did he ever mention hers?
Why should he?
Keep secrets, you tell me.